what is going on, guys? Frankie Trades here, bringing you another new weekly stock watch list. Before we get started, though, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We would really appreciate it. And without much more being said, let's go ahead and get started into the video. So, as far as earnings this week, there is not too much going on that I'm going to keep an eye out for, if I'm being honest. Really, the only names that I used to look at in the past, in the very distant past, was Home Depot. That used to be a big one for me. Target and Baidu. With the point that I'm at with my career, I will be skipping these stocks. So I will just be focused on Tesla, Nvidia, Meta, the basic usual stocks that I mention every single Sunday. So that is all I will be focused on. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the watch list. So first things first is, you guys know I like to talk about our indexes. So we'll go ahead and talk about NQ here. If I put NQ on the 1 hour, the 4 hour are usually the bigger important time frames here. You could see that we are currently stuck in a consolidation, and as of recently, we could see as well that 21,500 and 21,400 are very important points on NQ, and you'll see a similar trend with ES. So as far as NQ goes, because anything can happen overnight on Sunday and then going into Monday and going into the week in general, especially with Trump in presidency and the markets just always swinging back and forth over the weekend. Just in general, I will be keeping an eye out for NQ, anything above 21,500. I have no trend lines, no nothing on this, so we're pretty good on this end. Now, ES here, on the other hand, if I put this on the 1 hour or the 4 hour, you guys will see what I will be talking about on this one. So as far as big levels go for ES, the only big significant level that I will be keeping an eye out for will be the 6,000 area. Now, obviously, we did have a major drawback at the end of the day on Friday on after hours, all the way back down to 59.50, but this is really pretty much no man's land, right? The newest areas that we will be able to get to will be anything above 6,000. So for the meantime, until then, I think it will be pretty chop, just from my own charting and from my own analysis. So that is something to keep an eye out for myself. Going on the 1 hour here that ES has and that NQ doesn't is this 1 hour uptrend. We can see it was created last Friday, not this one we just had, but the Friday previous to that, and we can see that it has been respecting this trend line for a while now. We did wake above it and close above it late day on Friday, but this is something I think we should all keep an eye out for and seeing where this is going to open up at and how it's going to affect us going into tomorrow on Monday morning. So there's that. Those are the levels you guys need to keep an eye out for. As far as the downside goes, I would be keeping an eye out for on ES here at 5,900. NQ is pretty far away from any significant levels that I would be keeping an eye out for, but that's what I would be looking at for ES. Now, as far as the main stocks go, Apple will be the first one on the list. And you can see here, Apple's a pretty straightforward setup. We have a gap starting at around 214.50, and it's roughly around a $6 gap. Now, Apple had a drawback, pulled back. It's okay, it's whatever. But I believe this is a setup that everyone should have for their watch list. So whenever the day comes and Apple is ready to have a breakout, this is going to be a major breakout point on Apple on the 4 hour time frame. So I'll be looking at this at 214.50, possibly even 214 if it shows the right momentum and strength compared to the market, and ride that into 215 for a whole dollar trade. For Apple, you really don't need a lot of big dollar moves like on something like Tesla, right? Tesla usually get around maybe $3 to $5 on a breakout, depending on how important the level is and how weak or strong it is. With Apple, a dollar break is more than enough on Apple. That could be most times 20 to 30%, and that's all you need on this stock. So Apple, that is what I'd be keeping an eye out for. Next up is Meta. If I go to Meta here on the 4 hour, you get to see that we actually have a similar trend line here, only this one is on the 4 hour compared to the 1 hour that ES has. Now, this one does line up at around 617, maybe 620, depending on where this is where we're gonna be at for Meta tomorrow morning. But for Meta, we do have a gap starting from 621 all the way down to 607. If you guys put this on the daily time frame, that is how big the gap is. So it's roughly $14 here. So I'd be keeping an eye out for around 621, 620 as an entry, with room down below that to maybe 615. I probably wouldn't look to hold that long because of this trend line here, and this trend line obviously has been respected. You got one, two, we got two bounces off of it. And for me, for bigger time frame trend lines, I think that is more than enough for this to be a valid trend line to keep an eye out for. So, and especially too, every time that we did bounce off of it, we had a major bounce. So you could see that this was roughly like 486 all the way to 535. This candle or this time frame was around 530 all the way all the way up to 583, right? Now, obviously, this is with earnings, and, you know, it still respected that trend line very respectively, even the prior one. So this is something that everyone should keep an eye out for as well. I would be interested in some of the intra levels between 621 and 628, depending on how we set up and how weak meta is. But meta being really weak from Friday could continue that momentum going into Monday morning. Who knows? Next up is Microsoft. Microsoft here, if I put this on the 4-hour, you guys can see that we are currently in a consolidation. If on the 4-hour, it's a lot more clear. On the 1-hour, it starts to get a little weird. The thing I will note real quick on Microsoft is we have a similar trend line on this as well on the 4-hour. Only on this one, we're really far away. But with Microsoft here, you can see here this entire week that we have been stuck in a consolidation between 445 and 456. So pretty much I'll just be looking for a consolidation breakout here for either side. I don't have a preference on which one I play. I just prefer one to come over the other, depending on how the market's reacting, right? If it's strong, if it's weak, I want the stock to be doing the opposite. So if the market's weak, I want Microsoft to be bringing out to the upside because it'll show me that it's holding up on its own, or vice versa, right? So that's what I'd be keeping an eye out for on Microsoft. We also actually have a 1-hour trend line here that we talked about yesterday with a student pointing this out, and I actually happened to miss it. So shout out to him in the stock hours chat. But you can see we have a trend line all the way starting from Friday of May 2nd, and we have rejected 1, 2, 3, 4 times off of this trend line. So this could be a reason or a catalyst to take this even more at 445. I probably wouldn't be looking to take any early entries on this because of this trend line, but it definitely gives a valid reason for us to look at 445 or around the bottom of this range that Microsoft has been stuck in for this entire week. So that's Microsoft. Last but not least is Tesla. Of course, nothing new. Tesla here, we'd be looking at around 335 for a continuation for the downside for a consolidation break. You can see here on Tesla as well, we've been kind of stuck in a range on this as well for this entire week, from around 336, 335-ish, all the way up to 350. So around a 3 to 4 day consolidation. Not too much going on in Tesla here, but with how Tesla moves and the everyday consistency that Tesla provides, this is something that everyone should be keeping an eye out for at around 335 or around 350 for a retest, or possibly a continuation at a high at around 351 or even 352 here. So, but yeah, that is about it for the watch list, guys. Before you go, though, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. And with that much more being said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace out.